we announced the closure of the Chinese consulate in Houston because it was a hub of spying and intellectual property theft.
All right, we continue with our series, The China Threat. The communist country is engaged in a far-reaching campaign of espionage and data theft right here on the U.S. soil. Joining us now is the Vice President of Heritage Foundation's Kathryn and Shelby Cullom Davis Institute for National Security and Foreign Policy. Welcome, James Carafano. How are you, sir?
Hey, good to be with you. Good to be anywhere.
Yeah, I didn't know if you can you fit that title all on one business card?
Yes.
Okay.
Sometimes
hey, Jim,
NASCAR guy, there's like patches all over me. But
Jim, tell me what was going on in that consulate, as far as you know, that was such a threat to the U.S., and how big of a deal was it that we closed it?
Yeah, well, that's the root of a really great question. I think most Americans simply don't understand. There's a dividing line in Chinese cyber activity, and it's around 2015. Before that, essentially, a lot of it was just flat out economic espionage. Essentially, they would pay bounties to people. They go out, hack something, give it to us. We'll buy you a computer. We'll give you some bucks. And that is how they made up a lot of ground in economic competition. That started to change in 2015. One, because cybersecurity got better. People were onto them. Two, because in a lot of areas, they actually caught up with us and they didn't need that. And post then, they've really shifted how they've done a lot of their economic espionage, and they've moved from the cyber world to the human world, where they're actually using assets on the ground, all kinds of people, college students, researchers, gathering up information and bringing it back. It's called human, the intelligence community. That's why these consulates are so important, because essentially they are the home base for these intelligence networks. You don't do it out of the embassy because everybody's watching the embassy, but you've got these consulates. They're all over the country. They get you access to research universities, communities, citizens from your country come in there. Citizens from other countries come in there looking for visas. So they're a perfect place to do this. And of course, this is something the Chinese would never let us do. God, if we tried to run intelligence operations at our consulates in China, well, you couldn't. Because they have complete surveillance. They surveil everybody. So there's no reciprocity in what's going on here. So we were letting them do something which was incredibly damaging to us that they wouldn't even think about letting us do in their country.
You know, and we saw this in San Francisco as well, what you're mentioning. The consulate there was harboring this Chinese researcher that was a scientist. Do you think that we should be shutting down more Chinese consulates?
Well, you kind of caught them at this game. It's going to be much more difficult for them to run operations out of consulates in the future. The Chinese are adaptive, just like they shifted in 2015 from kind of the Wild West of cyber activity to bringing all their hackers under military control, using them much more strategically. The Chinese will move on and they'll find a different way. That's why this issue about Huawei and ZTE and TikTok is so important, because that's really the next phase of Chinese information warfare activity against the United States.
So, Jim, let me ask you a question when it comes to China. In most of these countries that we have diplomatic relationships, it's mutually beneficial. We get something, they get something. With respect to China, we get cheap goods, they steal our intellectual property, they send us a virus, and they lie to us. What do we get from them for real that makes the relationship worth it?
That's why I think that reciprocity is a key instrument of foreign policy that this administration has introduced. Administrations basically said, look, let's avoid confrontations with China. Let them rise. As they rise, they'll normalize. They'll become a normal nation. They'll become a net contributor. Let's not make them angry. Let's not be contentious with them. And what we did is created a massive amount of space for the Chinese to run wild. And what the administration has done is flip that whole proposition on its head. It goes, look, the way you get to stability and decent relations with China is not by ignoring their behavior. It's by challenging their bad behavior. And reciprocity, which essentially means it's like the golden rule. Dude, we're going to treat you the way you treat us. And that has been the basis of normalizing relations with countries for centuries. It's a fundamental of statecraft. And it's incredible that this is the first president that just decided to follow the most proven instrument of statecraft in all of history.
All right, well, we only have a minute left, so sorry to give you a short time on this, but what do you think the next step should be for the U.S. government to hold them accountable and to protect our democracy?
Well, we really do need to get the Huawei, ZTE, TikTok thing right, because that's the next phase of their strategy. Essentially, what they want to do is they want to get into our infrastructure so they can vacuum up everything they possibly can, take that back to China, use artificial intelligence and quantum computing to crack it all, process it all, and use it against us. So big Chinese companies that have a potential to have a global company that has a potential to have a big footprint in the United States that can suck up vast amount of information, that's going to be a no-no.
Jim, I want to thank you for sharing insight. It's such important and to giving our audience a better understanding of the threat that they pose to us. So thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
Hey, thanks for having me, guys.